for young people to say all the time, going to work and going home and sitting on your couch and scrolling through your reels is really not how people ask me, how come I have so many stories? Because I've done a lot of shit. I've done a lot of shit to have a lot of stories,
Yeah. All right, we are back for another episode of Under the Number. Today, I'm on site in New York City at the Real Experience office. I'm here with Gary Spitalnik, who's the co-founder here, but also has had one of the wilder career arcs of anyone that I've met. We've spent time together twice now prior to this, but time at Marquis Jet. He was a co-founder of Wheels Up, and now working on Real. So Gary, thank you so much for doing this.
And thanks for having me on the show, Under the Number.
That's right.
In Skybox Media. And we met at the Super Bowl this year in San Francisco in one of the hospitality houses, and it was great to connect. And here we are in New York City in the Real, I guess we can call it now, the Real Podcast Studios, impromptu. But thanks for having me.
Well, I just gave the teaser of this amazing career of yours. Can you give me a kind of play-by-play through these chapters?
Yeah, I can give you, some highlights of the chapters. Again, I think if I told you the whole story, we'd probably be here till breakfast tomorrow, or maybe through lunch. But no, we've been blessed, and we've had some incredible stories, incredible brand builds over the years, and most importantly, developed incredible relationships over the years. And as we all know, your network is your net worth, as they say. But we've done, as a team and as all of our companies and brands, we've done all the right things all the right way, which in business and is not easy to do. But again, our reputation for the most part is impeccable, which is what I'm most proud of. I would say, listen, my roles and my responsibilities at all of our companies that we've started and the brands that we built, somehow, some way, I was just always the person kind of organizing and putting things together. From when I was a little kid, organizing my little neighborhood buddies to ride our bikes to the local pizza shop, and being the leader of that little gang, just kind of evolved over the years. Where when we started, in the sports business, which really started kind of in music, which evolved to some hospitality and some sponsorship. Somehow, I just happened to be the guy who was putting the events together. I guess back then, it started as parties, and then parties evolved to events, and then event marketing, and then experiences, and experiential, again, which is the hot word today. And again, I would describe what we do now really as experiential hospitality is probably the best way to do it. Obviously, with a focus on sports and the big events, but again, my story is not different from a lot of stories in both the sports business and any entrepreneurial environment. We've worked hard. We've paid our dues in a lot of ways, but again, just had incredible experiences and developed some incredible programming and experiential marketing throughout the years.
Yeah, well, I mean, Real itself is one of the more interesting, fun, and on-trend businesses that I've seen in the last, certainly in the last year, that I've learned about for the first time. You said you broke into the sports world via music. I know there's a story there because you told me when we had dinner in Dallas a couple of months ago.
There is a story, and as I say the word story, I always say that the great DJs, their remixes have remixes, referring to music, and I would say the great storytellers, our stories have stories. So all the stories that I'll say today, there's 20 stories behind every story. But again, the quick deal on the music business is from a very young age, 12 years old, in the 1980s. I was an early adapter to hip hop music, and when rap was first starting to get going in New York City, and I went away to summer camp, and I met another young person at 12 years old from Long Island, New York, Jesse Itzler, and who was also, ironically, a young suburban kid into hip hop music, and we quickly bonded, and and that kind of evolved over through high school, and then we wound up in college together, and we started leaving rap messages on our answering machine, which led to people calling in and listening to our messages, which led to putting a little group together, Jesse and I, in college in Washington D.C., and entering rap contests, and a wild story. I mean, really could be a movie or a sitcom or a reality show. And then as the time evolved through college, Jesse, to his credit, continued with the music, and then we graduated, and Jesse got a record deal, and I was DJing on a radio station in London. We went to LA to make Jesse's record, Jesse James, 30 Footer in Your Face. That evolved to moving back to New York when we did a little jingle for Nancy Grunfeld and her company called In the Paint, which was an NBA licensed clothing company, which turned into Ernie Grunfeld calling Jesse and I. And we came up with Go New York Go, which I don't even know the years, but probably 30 plus years later, they still play a version of it in the garden. But that really kind of started, I guess, our entrepreneurial deal, which led to us meeting Kenny Dichter, which led to Marquis, Alphabet City Records, which was Jesse and Kenny's record label, sports music and marketing, which led to Marquis Jet, NetJets, Wheels Up, Real, and here we are. So I would say Real is a kind of a culmination of everything we've done throughout the years. We have Real Jet, which we are back in the airplane business. We have Real Sports Tech and Gaming, where we partnered up with some of the sports betting platforms and some of the prediction markets, and then Real Experience again, which is experiential marketing at the highest level, which we've done, and hospitality, which we've been doing as a background in all of our businesses, for the last 25 plus years.
So when I first met you at this event in San Francisco over Super Bowl week, you were telling me about this Rayo's pop-up
Sure.
that you guys had done. Tell me about that. And if you don't mind, with a little bit of historical context, the story of Rayo's, the
Sure.
restaurant,
Sure.
is remarkable.
Yeah. Well, I'll even go back a step, so when we started Marquis Jet, 2002, and really revolutionized, private aviation as it exists today. So there was a whole market of folks who back then who could afford to fly private and really didn't even know how to access it. And what we did with Marquis Jet is we really opened up the skies to this whole new market of private flyers. We developed what we called the Marquis Jet card, which was a Starbucks card for jet time. It was very easy to understand. And like I said, there was this whole new group of folks who had accumulated wealth, could afford to fly private, didn't even know how to do it, and Marquis Jet was really, we were the first ones to do it. But we quickly realized that if our, best customers were flying 100 hours a year with us, which again, doesn't sound like a lot of 50 to 100 hours. But at 7,000 an hour, obviously it's a lot of dough.
Mm-hmm.
But we also realized that if there's 8,760 hours in a year, 8,760. So if you do 365 times 24, there's 8,760 years. As a brand, how do we stay in our customers' lives when they weren't flying with us? The other 8,710 hours, if they were flying 50 hours a year. And we quickly developed, both in our Marquis NetJet days and really took it to another level in the Wheels Up days, our experiential member benefits program, where yes, obviously the flying was very important, getting people safely from A to B, but our Wheels Down program, which we called in the Wheels Up days, became a huge part of our offering. And we really, in the height of Wheels Up, we built a community of 16,000 very, very loyal and passionate Wheels Up members who obviously were flying with us, but we were creating oases, around the Super Bowls, around Augusta, around, big sporting and cultural events around the country and the world, where our members obviously were flying into these events, but then also being amongst each other and networking and doing deals and collaborating, and like minds, as you know, like to be around like minds. So that's kind of the 35,000 foot view. And then, kind of on a whim, we have always had a great long-standing relationship with Famous Rayos on 114th Street in Pleasant in New York City in East Harlem. If you don't know the story, they are a 130-year-old institution. But the magic about Rayo's New York City is there's only 10 tables. There are no reservations. It's a table system. So I tell people, even if you know you're coming to New York 2 years from now and you want to go to Rayo's, you can't. And on a whim in 2018, in the Wheels Up days, we kind of had pitched them on a few ideas, and they built their business saying no to people because when you say no, they wanted more. And we had talked about a few ideas, and then in 2018, they agreed to do a pop up with us in Augusta in our backyard at the 2018 Masters, and we did one night. And over the last 7 years, we've now done seven Super Bowls, Rayo's pop up. We've done seven pop ups in Augusta around the Masters. Last year in September, we were official on site at the Ryder Cup with our Rayo's pop-up. So it's been an incredible, incredible story. And it comes back to experiential hospitality. I think a brand like Rayo's, everyone in this world today uses the word authenticity, I think very loosely. You can't argue with a 130-year institution like Rayo's and as authentic as it gets. We did something cool in Augusta this year. We implemented and executed kind of our second pop-up story, and we partnered with the folks from McSorley's Old Ale House in the
Yeah.
East Village,
Yeah.
arguably one of the most famous Irish bars or bars, surely in North America, potentially in the world. 172-year-old brand, McSorley's. They had never done anything outside the bar in 172 years. And again, we were honored to do 3 nights with them in Augusta. We replicated the bar in Augusta, and it really was the talk of the town this year at the Masters, which, as you all know, has become Coachella for CEOs, Augusta, that 1 week a year. So super exciting stuff. But again, I go back to authenticity. I think in today's world, there's a lot of folks who are trying to manufacture authenticity, which is very difficult to do. You're either authentic or you're not. And the two brands that we've been, had incredible partnerships with, Rayo's and now McSorley's, it doesn't get more authentic. So it's been exciting. But again, as you know, in today's world, the more you say no, the more people want it more, and they have an incredible brand and business.
Absolutely. And so, with real and real experiences, the experience is the product. And you just mentioned it, we've done pop-ups. Sometimes though, when I think of pop-up, it's like, okay, a brand activation, IRL. What does that mean? Some pop-up tents,
Yeah.
some tables, and you park a Lexus on a golf course. That is not what you guys are doing. You're taking it to a freaking insane level. Talk about the builds that you do and what
Yeah.
pop-up really looks like.
Well, listen, and all the brands that were there and the concerts. I mean, 23 years ago in Augusta specifically, it was very sleepy. The corporates had some houses and some hospitality stuff, but and literally our first Marquis NetJets Augusta activation, we literally pitched a tent and we tapped a keg on Azalea Drive, and no one was doing anything. And to see what's happened, just down there, but I think, listen, when you replicate and the brands I just talked about, the authenticity, and when you want to replicate and do a pop up of any magnitude, we really every detail from the flooring to the ceilings to everything that happens at our pop-ups, we try to keep, like I said, as detailed, as authentic as it gets. But at the end of the day, listen, it's always all about the people, as what I say. And the one thing that we've been able to do, again, going back to relationships, is when you walk into one of our events, and again, throughout the years, we've done hundreds and hundreds. There's a special feeling. You're not just going into another corporate event. It's welcoming, it's warm. You feel the energy. And again, a lot of that has to do, again, we're not tooting our horns, but we're very good hosts and know how to treat people. So anyone that walks into any of our experiences or events, they get a hug, obviously, if we know them. And if we don't know them, they get a hug also. And there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of connectivity in these rooms. And again, the builds are great, and the venues are great. But I've always said, and I've said this, going back to the Marquis NetJet days. Honestly, we could have our events in a garage, and they would be amazing because, again, just like anything else, it's all about the people, and that's what still to this day, excites me about everything that we do at these events.
Well, and I know that the Wheels Up Super Bowl parties used to be a different animal, like in a league of its
Yeah,
own, from what
yeah.
I understand. Um, Two people who, you spent years working alongside, Kenny Dichter being one
Sure,
still today here. Tell me what you learned from Jesse Itzler
sure,
and from Kenny Dichter, and how you guys have been able to complement each other
sure,
inside of these
sure.
different
Sure.
businesses.
Well, like I said, Jesse, we go back a long time,
Yeah.
12 years old,
Yeah.
camp, college, weddings, all that kind of stuff. And again, Jesse's super, super, super talented, incredible relationship person, uh, incredible motivator, as you know, what he's doing now with his motivational stuff. And again, he's helping people, which I think is incredible. And the one thing I've always said, we sat around as seniors in college at American University, and five of us living in a house, and we were all kind of talking about what the future held for us. And to Jesse's credit, Jesse said, "You know what? I'm never going to need a resume. I will never need a resume." And we all looked at him like, "Well, everyone has a resume." And to Jesse's credit, I don't think he's ever actually had a written resume, but obviously he's built an incredible resume in his career in life. And I would say Kenny, who we've been through wars together, good wars, bad wars, tough things. But again, I think at the end of the day, like I've said, what I've learned from Kenny is always doing the right thing, always taking the high road. And sometimes that's not easy to do. Like I said before, in business, sometimes you got to take the hit and take the loss and this and that, the other thing. But like I said, I think just dealing with people, being fully transparent, as Kenny always is. I think in any relationship, partnership, business, teams, I think it's important that obviously everyone knows what their strengths are, and strengths have to complement other folks' strengths in the organization. But I also think at the same time, it's just as important to know where your weaknesses are, and not everyone is good at everything. Kenny might argue that he might say that he's good at everything, but I would say, again, as much as you have to know what your strengths are, even more important to know what your weaknesses are. Because again, I always say this: I'm not the Excel spreadsheet guy, but you need someone in the organization that is that extra, so all these different things. And again, I always go back to when we have our calls or little meetings, Bill Belichick, who we know a long time, who helped us, worked with us in the Marquis jet and Wheels Up days. He has the best line of all when he talks to his players and he puts in the locker room. He says, "Do your job." If everyone on the team does their job, then the team will win. The offensive lineman is not worrying about, the defensive back on the other side of the ball, on the other, on the same team. The offensive lineman is doing his job. And if he does his job, then the running back follows his block and he's doing his job. And if everyone on the team does their job, do your job, then the team will win. And that's kind of how we always have looked at things in all the organizations that we've been a part of. And we always joke around. And Kenny, this is Kenny's line. We're low SAT, low GPA guys who have just always kind of uh, worked hard, built the relationships, and know what it takes. Listen, nothing in this world happens if something is not sold. Something has to be sold in order for everything else to go into motion. So, I always say when someone here or someone comes out of a meeting, how was the meeting? It was a good meeting. I say, great. What does that mean? Did we sell something? Because once you sell something, then everything else goes into motion. But that's kind of a little background there.
So, one theme or one consistent thing across these companies, Marquis Jet, Wheels Up, and now Real, is you're dealing with the 0.01% generally, if not add a couple zeros before that one. And right now you hear over and over again how this K-shaped economy is such a thing. We know there is more money in the world right now and in a few hands than there's ever been. I just read something that apparently 160 people in Austin, Texas are set to make $100 million or more when SpaceX
Yep.
IPOs. There's
Yep.
probably 1,060 people like that in Miami. Like it's continuing, and some
Yep.
of these liquidity events that people are going to
Sure.
experience coming up here, it's boggles the mind. My question on that is, what does that cohort want today in 2026?
Well, I think again, depends on the individual, obviously, but what we've seen and what we've learned is, you know, First of all, most folks, even when they make that kind of dough, they're still, for the most part, I won't say regular people, but regular people.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, everyone's got issues and everyone's got things they're dealing with. But I think, you know, obviously, when you get to that level, there are certain things of that you can afford that a lot of other folks cannot afford. But I think, listen, we've seen that folks want access. You know, obviously, access to things that money can't buy all the
Right.
time. You know,
Right.
so again, premise, you know, to kind of, you know, what we're doing now, experiential access. I think the days of, you know, the dressing up in the suits and the blazers, again, you still have a need for that in certain circumstances, but you know, the billionaires next door now are have the hoodies and the Lululemon pants and, you know, showing up with the New Balance sneakers. So a little bit of a different mentality, but I think, listen, they want the best. They want access, ease. I think, you know, health and wellness, you know, obviously is a big, you know, point is after they make that kind of money, you want to live forever.
Yeah.
But again, I think folks want the best. And again, one of the folks and one of the groups that I look up to is Discovery Land and Mike Meldman and
Yeah.
JJ, what they've done. You know, they service folks at the highest level, but in the most casual setting,
Right.
you know, where it's fun and things like, and again, fun, you know, I would say fun, you know, fun is a forgotten word in today because everyone's married to their devices and everyone's worried about what everyone else is doing, living vicariously or just scrolling through their reels. You know, the art of fun has become a little bit of a lost art. And I think when we do our activations for these 1% of the one percenters, you know, when their phones are down and they're interacting and they're having good old fashioned fun, it's all of a sudden it's different. And you know, still what excites me today when we do all of our stuff, including, you know, our incredible Rayos pop-ups, I always take a step back and I look around the room. First of all, the rooms, again, the folks that are in this room, whether it's team owners and billionaires. And I mean, if you would have seen the room in San Francisco, I mean, it was just incredible. But everyone's having fun. And still, what excites me to this day when I do take that step back, nobody's on their phones.
Yeah.
People are engaged.
Locked in.
They're
Yeah.
talking to people. They're smiling. Again, you always get the folks that are taking the pictures and things like that, but there's no, you know, phone to the, it's just it's different. And again, I think in this crazy world today where nothing is real for the most part except real, I think people, again, going back to the folks that we've flown for all these years and we've gotten to know and the relationships, they want the best, but they want to relax. They want the authenticity. They want, you know, obviously in today's age, speed, getting things done, is important. And that's kind of how we look at it.
So for the real business model, it's not exactly a pay to play membership club. And you have these experiences that you've talked about, Ryder Cup and
Hmm.
Super Bowl and Masters. Talk about the structure of the business itself. And I realize that there are tons of brand partners and ways to activate
Sure.
through that, but give me the rundown.
Yeah, I would say on the real experience side, you know, we've kind of taken the approach where it's almost like fractionalized hospitality.
Okay.
So a corporate or a group or even an individual that doesn't want to, you know, do a huge build out or, you know, a corporate that doesn't want to spend 5 million bucks, you know, putting their own program together, they can kind of buy into or partner with real
Hmm.
experience on that level. For an individual, obviously, if they're part of our ecosystem, where they're flying real jet or they're part of our kind of sports tech platform, there is an offer, you know, around these events that they can be a part of, being part of our ecosystem. So kind of a club of clubs where we have a lot to offer. And if you're part of the ecosystem, then you get to take advantage of all the things that we put together.
How do you think through what brands make the cut or don't make the cut when it comes to being associated with a company like
Well, listen, yeah, listen. I think you know, we're very discerning, obviously, with the folks that we partner with. Obviously, we love, you know, young entrepreneurs who have great ideas, who have built brands and businesses that are relevant in this world. You know, relevancy is such an important word, and you know, we've seen it with certain brands that if you don't stay relevant, very quickly, the opposite of relevant is
Obsolete.
Irrelevant,
Irrelevant.
irrelevant. And again,
Never thought of
we've seen this in real time, where certain brands, and I won't mention any, that they've kind of lost their way a little bit.
Yeah.
And amazing to see the innovators kind of, step up. I always ask the young people, do you ever think there will be a device that replaces the iPhone? And you could argue never, but they said that about some other devices also. So I think, innovators, obviously. Again, I don't love the word luxury, but I would say, luxury brands,
Mhm.
forward-thinking, companies and brands, and obviously at the highest level, obviously financial institutions that need to entertain, their clients, brands that want to be in front of our clients. That's whether it's automobile, whether it's tech, whether it's fintech, whether it's obviously, the AI and all that stuff. And just for full disclosure, this is Gary Spit on the mic. I'm not Claude or ChatGPT. Someone might rip off my voice, but that's a whole nother subject. But again, we firmly believe, and again, getting back to some of these brands and some of the companies that we partner with, we firmly believe that the more there is of AI, which is here to stay. It's an incredible tool for any business if used properly. But the more there is of AI, there is going to be more of a need for HI, which is human intelligence. And again, I think the word I used before was phygital, where the digital companies are over-indexed on digital, and they need help in the physical world, and probably vice versa. Some of the physical brands need help in the digital world, but we're kind of there to fill that void in the physical world, or the IRL,
Yeah.
as our great friend Tim Armstrong, who likes to refer to. But that's the story.
And so I can't help but think about Ari Emanuel's bet here, his
Sure.
anti-AI bet, and what he's doing with Mari.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many kind of synergies and so much overlap between those two. How do you view that move he's making?
I mean, they're on trend. And listen, Ari, obviously we know Mark Shapiro for me has been one of our rabbis, and we look up to Mark, and he's a dear friend, and he always has his table at the Rayos pop up because he knows the right rooms to be in. But I think, listen, those guys are the smartest guys in the business, and I think what they're doing with Mari and the properties that they've acquired, the Miami tennis and some of the other things, combined with the whole other entity, TKO and everything else. These guys are geniuses, and if they're on trend, and I think, and we're right behind them. I think they're obviously, they know what they're doing, and I think if we could follow in a small way everything that they've done, then we'd be if we could be half as successful as them, we'd be happy, or a tenth of a percent. But we have a lot of respect for those guys.
Well, and I heard him talk about the work they do with On Location, and he's talking about the appetite for the ultra premium
Yep.
experiential stuff. In the one example I heard, he's talking about these $300,000 a head things at the Super Bowl,
Yep.
and basically the ceiling is at this point almost just your imagination. What can you deliver without, you know, making it just totally obnoxiously overkill? I
Yep.
guess.
Yep. Yep.
You've been to how many Super Bowls?
This was my 26th this year in San
Okay, you've been to
Francisco.
26 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So, was your first one like Bucks Raiders?
First one was Bucks, the one in Atlanta. The
Was
Atlanta,
that Bucks Raiders? I mean, I was 2 years old, so
which was the ice bowl where the town Atlanta froze, and a town like Atlanta, when there's an ice storm, the cars are slipping all over the road. But that was kind of the first year that we went. I would say the first activation, going back to our original hospitality days, was in Tampa, when it was Giants Ravens.
okay.
In Tampa. The Giants got blown out, but in some way, shape, or form, yes, our group has been to the last 26 Super Bowls. Obviously, our Marquis NetJet days is when we first kind of started the deal, and then Wheels Up, we just took it to another level. You mentioned the Wheels Up Super Saturday tailgate, which,
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Take us
I
back.
mean,
Super Saturday tailgate.
it was the perfect time slot. Saturday afternoon from 1 to 5. We always had the best venue. It was a daytime gig, the best people, and over the years, it just grew and grew and grew. This year, obviously, 2020 was the last year that we do it. Miami, we did it right before COVID, but this year, obviously, San Francisco, for the 60th anniversary. 60th Super Bowl 10 years ago, Super Bowl 50 is where we kind of took it really raised the bar, and that set off, the next 3 or 4 years. But 2016 is when we had about 3,000 people in San Francisco, a place called the Herbst Pavilion down on the water. It was like an airplane hangar on the water, on the pier, and we had Bobby Weir from the Grateful Dead perform, and it just, again, everybody was there. It was a who's who, and again, to Michael Rubin and Fanatics credit, they've kind of continued in their own way, that Saturday afternoon deal, which I did go to this year, and it was incredible,
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, the people that Michael gets there is really next level. But again, we did it. We had our run. We still get the calls when it comes Super Bowl time. Are you guys ever going to bring back, your tailgate? So maybe one day anything is possible. And I think there is a day when potentially we will bring that back.
Yeah.
Won't be wheels up, obviously, but
Yeah.
it'll be real.
Yeah.
The real Super Saturday tailgate.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first met you, you were literally had just walked over from the Fanatics Super Bowl
Yep,
thing.
that's exactly right.
You were saying
On the water. No, it was incredible.
unbelievable.
Incredible.
When you look back to 25 years ago at the Super Bowl, what has changed? Obviously, people keep pushing the envelope and it feels like it gets more and more over the top, but like mechanically, and as far as what brands are really doing and intentionally doing, what have you seen change? Has it become just more of this festival? Has it actually been elongated out into the week leading into it? Like, what is the biggest difference?
Listen, for sure. I mean, listen, the Super Bowl the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl. What's evolved, since they started Super Bowl one, I guess it was 60 years ago, but it is really, it's incredible, and what the league does and so on and so forth. We always get into the cities early. We do our first night of Rayos, or have been for the last 7 years. We start on Tuesday, and we partner with the Crucial Catch, which is the American Cancer Society's initiative with the NFL. So that kicks off our week. And obviously, I would say, Tuesday, Wednesday, what used to be Wednesday, now folks are coming in on Tuesday. And again, I think from the business of sports perspective, obviously the game and all the pomp and circumstance around the week and the weekend, it's the business of sports. And when people come in early in the week and meetings are being held, and, whether it's the sports marketing agencies working with the clients, or the player reps and the thing, or the teams, the teams hosting their sponsors,
Mhm.
for the week. Obviously, even if they're not in the game, all the teams, do a Super Bowl trip and they bring their sponsors. We've seen a lot of activity from sports teams that are now taking their clients to Augusta for the Masters, so they're showing them other ways of, obviously, hospitality, but taking them to other experiences as a thank you for the partnerships. But Super Bowl, yeah, I mean, it has become the most incredible, week of the year. Obviously, because it moves every year. Every city has its different flavor and its different things to do. I would say in San Francisco this year, although, San Francisco has surely changed in the last 10 years, still an incredible, incredible city. The weather they got there this year was Chamber of Commerce weather. I
It's
mean, it was
unbelievable.
really,
Yeah.
and weather is sometimes these big events, it's 90% of it, if the weather's great and people can walk around
Yeah.
and things like that. But from a brand perspective, yes, I mean, there's a lot, at all the big events now. We just came from F1 and in Miami, and the Cadillac Championship, which was going on at Trump Doral. First time the PGA Tour has been back to Miami in 10 years. And there's a lot going on, and I think from a brand perspective, the cream always rises to the top. And I think a lot of brands, like I talked about before, although experiential is on the tip of every brand marketer's tongue, you really have to do it the right way. There's the old saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I think as time goes on, people will realize that, okay, their brand activation is not just slapping a logo on an event or having it come up on the LED screen. How can they really, really, really activate? And I think obviously with social media and the content creators and all the stuff that's happening in the world, there's even more of a way to amplify. I mean, still, now a month after Augusta and the Masters, I'm still in my feed seeing, what happened down there, what the brands were doing, the influencer stuff. So the stuff lives on, even way beyond it was even 10 years ago,
Right.
from an amplification standpoint. And I think that helps everybody, and it's how important it is to be to be at these events in some way, shape, or form. Again, you just have to be careful of how you position your brand, what experience and event you're being a part of, and kind of look at it that way.
So we've talked a lot about real experience and experiences. Obviously, with Marquis Jet and Wheels Up, Marquis Jet, you mentioned it, but it was the first jet card, right?
Yep.
Fractional jet card that somebody could have. And Wheels Up was its own beast and its own model, and was, you can give the maybe 30-second elevator pitch of what the key was for Wheels Up. And then I just want you to tell me about Real Jet, because we
Sure.
haven't talked about it.
Sure, sure. Well, again, in the Marquis Jet days, we had the opportunity to partner with NetJets, which was and still is the 800-pound,
Yeah.
gorilla in the space,
Yeah.
Berkshire Hathaway. I mean,
Right.
incredible, incredible, incredible what they've built. But we had the luxury of, we didn't have the responsibility of operating the fleet, which NetJets did. So we were basically just, a value-added reseller
Yeah.
when we came up with this Marquis Jet car. But I think most importantly, we like I said before, we opened up the skies to this whole new private flyer. And again, I don't know the exact number. Kenny probably would, but all the NetJet fractional owners now, a big percentage of them probably came through the Marquis Jet card program,
Right.
kind of as a starter feeder. And we had a great 10-year run there. And then when we started Wheels Up, we kind of we had both sides of the equation. We had obviously the sales and marketing, and once again, we built an incredible brand, but we were also operating our fleet of airplanes.
Yep.
So we had both sides of the transaction, which is can at times be a little challenging, but and then COVID, and then the industry went straight up, which sounds great in any business, but anytime there's that overnight kind of boost, especially in the airplane business, there's things that have to be dealt with, demand and pilots and things like that. But again,
Right.
it was incredible for the industry. And then Real Jet, where we have a little bit of a different twist on it, where we're not owning any airplanes. We're going asset light, or asset zero,
Zero.
basically. We're,
Yeah.
we're really acting as a boutique brokerage in the space, where we're going to pair our clientele with the proper plane for the mission that they're doing. Obviously, safety first always. So there's several hundred operators in the United States that also fill the gaps for a lot of these other fractional providers, and those are the folks that we're going to be working with that meet the safety standards of Real Jet. And we're going to pair, like I said, the Real Jet flyers with the right aircraft for the mission they're doing at a very fair price. And again, our network and our relationship and our customer base, we were off to a flying start.
There
Let's
you
put
go.
it at that.
There you go.
Yeah.
You might have seen this just 2 weeks ago. Josh Kushner's firm, Thrive, here in New York,
Sure.
notorious for their concentrated big bets and positions in companies like
hmm
OpenAI and Stripe and Databricks, and just the most frontier technology companies. And then, out of the blue, they announced Thrive Eternal, their new permanent vehicle for,
Okay.
no close, no 7-year time horizon,
Okay.
with the goal of buying basically the most iconic and culturally relevant brands and properties that they can get their hands on.
hmm
They announced this, and
Right.
they say, and by the way, our first investment is $100 million slug of the San Francisco Giants baseball team,
Got it.
and 100-plus-year-old brand. And people thought, oh my gosh, what is this? And people had all their takes about it. And reality is, it's very similar to the real. I mean, it's the other side of the barbell, right? If you're in an era, if we think we're entering an era of extreme abundance and hyper automation, and things can be created like this, you can't create arrays like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
even if you can, create an AI rendering of one in
Yeah.
half a second. What do you make of that play?
I mean, again, it goes back a little bit to, like you said, could you ever recreate the San Francisco Giants? No. So again, we've seen what's happened with the valuations of the teams. We've seen an abundance of what they call the emerging leagues. Everything from volleyball to electric boat racing
Yeah.
to, and again, there's only so many eyeballs.
Sailing, lacrosse.
Yeah,
It
so
goes
many,
on and
so
on.
many eyeballs, and again, some will make it, some will fail, some will, again, and again, I say this every day. Every day, millions of people wake up with millions of ideas. It's all about obviously execution and getting the job done. But I think again, the team valuations, everyone said at some point they'll top off this, that, but they haven't, so
Scarce assets.
yeah. So an investment like that, and obviously what's happened in all the leagues and allowing private equity to invest and things like that, and people, getting a small taste in a piece of the teams. I think the sky is the limit, and I think listen, the one thing, and it's interesting, sports in general. People can watch their shows and the Netflix whenever they want to watch them, and there is nothing like watching a live sporting event. Obviously, we're in the throes of the NBA finals, and even me, busy as can be, when I get home, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, the first thing I do is I go into my den and put on whatever game is on, and you walk by the bars and restaurants in New York City, and the games are on, and young people are watching the games. Obviously, the sports tech and the gaming aspect to it has surely added to a lot of that, with the in-game play and things like that, which, good, bad, or indifferent, it's here to stay forever, I believe. But like I said, Kushner and these guys know what they're doing. Smartest guys, some of the smartest guys in today's world. So if they're making plays like that, I'm sure others will follow suit.
Yeah, I mean, another example that was crazy is I think it's Hoff Capital or HOF Capital. I hate to say it wrong, but it's a very prominent New York venture group with extreme leading edge tech portfolio. And they just announced 2 weeks ago, hey, we're actually going to lead a consortium to buy the majority of Bugatti.
Got it.
People are thinking, what is that? That's so off base, but it's a great investment. I
Of
mean,
course.
it's iconic. There's nothing like having a 150-year
Yeah.
brand for a moat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's
When
exactly
it
right.
holds up, done something to make it this far. Take
Sure.
your, McSorleys and Reyes again as an example. How do you look at if you were going to start a festival? You mentioned emerging leagues.
Hmm.
People are starting leagues every month, it feels like. People are starting new types of massive experiential gatherings and concert venues and music festivals. What would be your word of advice for the person who says, I just want to dive in head
Yeah.
first?
Listen, the first thing I say, because again, we get a lot of those
I
calls,
bet, I'm sure you do.
whether it's for sponsorship, whether it's for help, whether it's investment.
Yeah,
I would say to anyone that's inspired to do something like that, the first thing that we always say is go do it. And nothing is easy in this world. It's the other thing we always tell people. But you gotta take that toe in, if you really believe in something, and you really have the passion for it. And if everyone else tells you no and you still believe in it, then you keep moving forward. But the hardest part, I always tell people, and we have a good friend of ours, JD Hawk, who's in September for the first time ever. He's doing a food and wine festival at Big Sky, Montana, and JD is doing it. It was his idea. Obviously, it's ups and downs as anytime you're putting something like this together, but he's got incredible momentum. And as I told him 10 times, you get through the first year, and then it gets easier. So it's really doing it, knowing that you're going to have highs and lows, because that's in any industry, any business. But in the live event and experiential business, it's even harder. But once you kind of get through that first year and get over those hurdles, you learn, from that first year. And if you can get through that and continue with it, and obviously have the right, financial model, obviously very important, and having the right partners, and activating properly, then anything is possible. It's just kind of getting through that first inning. And I could tell you stories, our first Super Bowls and our first, Augustas, and all these things where you gotta fight through it, and you gotta have, perseverance and belief. Kenny likes to say that a hundred people with belief is more powerful than 10,000 people who have just a little bit of interest.
absolutely.
You got to believe in what you're doing, and really have the passion. And again, every entrepreneur will tell you the story that when everyone tells you no, that's probably a good indication to keep moving forward. But that would be kind of my advice there.
Yeah, you need super fans. That's funny. I just got introduced to JD earlier this month.
Oh, you're kidding me?
Yeah,
Is he great? Is he
small
great?
world.
Is he right? It's a great guy.
Um, when you've had a long career now. When you do an event like an activation at the Masters, do you get nervous? Do you get nervous like a game
You know,
day?
that's an excellent question. I mean, I would say nervous is not the word. Do I have a few sleepless nights with a million things going through my head? Yes. But I think at this point, in just my career and our team and everything we've done, there's not a problem that can't be solved. And things do come up. And I tell the team here, as much as we plan and prepare and have all of our ducks in a row, at some point, something's going to go awry, whether it's weather, whether it's someone not showing up, whether it's the caterer or the generator. There's a million moving parts when you're activating something, something like we do it at the level that we do it. But you gotta be a fast problem solver. There was an old deodorant commercial many years ago, which you probably don't remember, but the theme of the commercial was don't ever let them see you sweat. And what goes on in the back of the house, they never see in the front of the house.
Right.
But again, it's all how you manage people, manage expectations, and and I would say, and most important is the partners that are in the project with you, whether it's production partners, your sound and lighting, whether your caterer. If you put an incredible team together again, and that team does their job, going back to Bill Belichick's quote, then the team will win. And we've gotten to a point now, we really have established an all-star team as far as our partners and vendors, or I like to say our frienders, as we've evolved over the years. But again, even with that, things happen, situations come up. I mean, we could, like I said, there's great storytellers. Our stories have stories, but one famous story from that same Super Bowl I mentioned in Tampa, Ravens Giants. We had prepared for a little tailgate that we didn't realize was in the clean zone of the NFL. And when we were setting up the tailgate, the Tampa police came over and asked us where our tent was. And we said, "We don't need a tent. It's 75 and sunny. Why would we need a tent? It's not gonna rain." And he said, "Well, you're in the NFL clean zone." He said, "If you don't get a tent up in the next 2 hours, we're shutting you down." And short story long, or long story short, we were able to solve that problem, and we got someone with the transportation group that was handling the league and all this kind of stuff, and that was, you know, and we had to wrap up all the catering, then put it out again. But again, stories like that, happen. It's just like I said, it's all how you deal with it and handle it.
Yeah. I mean, and we're running out of time here,
Sure.
but one of your guys here was telling me that I need to ask you about the time that you took a train across the country to go to a basketball game. I just can't imagine how many like legendary
Oh,
stories
yeah.
are considered the small things for you at
Yeah.
this point in your career, just because of
Well,
how many
well,
things you've
well,
been around.
when Jesse and I were coming up and we had moved back from LA, we started to do a little work for some brands and things like that. And the last minute, the NBA All-Star Game was in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we got hired literally probably 3 days before, and we had to be out there on the Friday morning, and it was probably Tuesday. We looked at the flights. Flights for like 4,000, $4,000, each. We didn't have the dough and we weren't even getting paid close to that. So we decided to take an Amtrak cross country, and we boarded the train at Penn Station. We didn't even get the sleeper cars. We just got, two seats. Train was packed. The first leg of the trip was New York to Chicago, which we got through the night. We slept a little bit. The second leg of the trip was Chicago to Salt Lake City. And obviously a bunch of stops along the way, but I'll never forget, there was one, we were like in the mountains and the train was going through the mountains, and all of a sudden you come out and you're looking at snow-capped mountains, the beautiful, I don't even know where we were. And then we finally got to Salt Lake City. We crashed on the floor. We had a couple buddies that were working at the NBA, and we crashed on their floor. We did our work. And then the Amtrak ticket that we had purchased was kind of around. We could do 2 or 3 more stops and then take it back to New York. So we decided we were going to go back to LA to see some friends on the train. We board the Amtrak this Sunday night after the All-Star game. We fall asleep. We wake up 5 in the morning. The train is in a dead stop in the middle of the desert. There was a maintenance issue. And I'm telling you, from 5 in the morning till 5 p.m., we sat on that train. The food cart was completely ran out of food. The bar cart, the stories, the people. I mean, there were couples that got on the train together. By the time we were done in the desert, they switched partners. I mean, it was like wild. And then we couldn't even go outside because there was a rattlesnake warning. So you couldn't even you leave the train. So for 12 hours we sat on the train, and then finally the conductor came on and said, we got it fixed and blah, blah, blah. And next stop, Las Vegas. And Jesse and I looked at each other. We said, you know what? We're getting the hell off in Las Vegas. We got our bags and checked into the Mirage Hotel at the time, which was the thing. And then eventually got back home. But those are the things you do. Those are the stories that you tell. This year I had another great story. We're formulating this partnership with McSorley's, and we were having a Zoom the day before St. Patty's Day. And as you can imagine, McSorley's on St. Patty's Day is, people line up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 300 deep,
Yeah.
just to go to McSorley's on St. Patty's Day. And we were having a Zoom with the owners, and they told me the doors open at 8 and they get there at 6:30. And I said, you know what? I will be there at 6:42 to have the first beer at McSorley's on St. Patty's Day. And sure enough, I went down, the door was locked, I knocked on the thing, they snuck me in. And again, having a beer at McSorley's on St. Patty's Day is like, being on the field at Yankee Stadium, on opening day. It's like being at the finish line, the Indy 500s, that level of coolness and experience. And we got the picture and we did the hug. And again, that's a story that I'll tell forever, but I think, just for young people to say all the time, going to work and going home and sitting on your couch and scrolling through your reels is really not how people ask me, how come I have so many stories? Because done a lot of shit. I've done a lot of shit to have a lot of stories,
Yeah.
And to Jesse's credit, I think Jesse has a line, build your life resume. And I think just very, very, very important in today's world to spend more time looking up and less time looking down, staring at your phone. Because if you keep looking down, you're going to miss what's right in front of you.
Yeah. Well said. Last question.
Sure.
What is the sporting event that you would say needs to be at the top of everyone's bucket list?
Well, I would say Augusta and the Masters for sure. I mean, it is a special, special week. The one word, obviously, that's always associated with Augusta and the Masters is tradition. And it really is, to our good friend Jim Nance's credit, a tradition unlike any other. So I'd put that at the top of the bucket list. The Derby, again, I would say probably the same thing. It's a lot. It's a lot in 2 days. I've been twice, even for the great Gary Spitt. It's a lot. But again, it's really, what your interests are and things. People love the Indy 500. They do.
Yeah.
People love F1. But again, I just think, the gathering of people, the experience, the memories. I just sat on a panel, University of Wisconsin sports business conference, and the panel was titled, Memories, Not Merchandise. Where the world we're living in today, things don't really matter as much as they once did. It's creating the memories. It's being with your families. It's being with your friends. Listen, I'm a golfer. I'm a decent golfer. I'm not a great golfer, but the best thing about golf is, is it's all about the hang. It's being with the guys. It's being with the friends. It's the telling the stories, the joking, you're not staring at your phones again the whole time.
Right.
Again, memories, not merchandise.
Well, Gary, it was certainly memorable for me to be able to just drop in on your office, come by
Anytime.
the real set.
We may have to monetize this now. We're going to put a little real, real podcast studio.
You
We'll
should.
rent it out to some other folks.
You should. It's fantastic. But really, thank you so much. We got to do this again in a couple of years and see where real is at that point. But thank you, really.
Yeah. And thanks to you, Under the Number, Skybox, and congratulations on everything you're doing. And we're here to help in any way we can.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
You got it. Thank you.